Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Nicastro. Today, we're going to get a look at Tetra Pak's approach to service growth. And this is a conversation that is centered around the recent research that Future of Field Service partnered with Simon-Kucher on. I'm thrilled to welcome back to the podcast Sasha Ilyukhin, who is the Senior Vice President for Global Processing Services and Services Solutions at Tetra Pak. Sasha, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. And hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
I didn't take a look before we got on to record, but this is probably your fourth or fifth appearance on the podcast
Oh my.
over our 7 years. So lovely to have you back. And for listeners that might not be familiar with the research that we partnered with Simon-Kucher on, late last year, we joined up to do a survey of about 180 participants in leadership across a variety of service-centric industries and also across geographies to really look at what is the feelings toward service growth potential, what are the challenges that exist in, reaching that potential, what are some of the best practices, et cetera. And so that research is available. We can make sure that we link it in the show notes for the podcast. But what I wanted to do here, Sasha, and I'm happy to have you, when I think of companies that have focused quite a bit on service potential, you and Tetra Pak would certainly come to mind. And so through this episode of the podcast and some others, what I wanted to do was just get sort of the real world response to the research findings that we have published and sort of see, how does that match what your sentiment is? How are the challenges similar or not? How have you sort of achieved the success you have and what's next? So thank you for being willing to come and share your perspective on the findings and how it relates to Tetra Pak's journey. So I guess before we dive into the questions themselves, knowing that not everyone listening today may have heard some of your earlier episodes, do you want to just give a brief introduction to yourself and to the Tetra Pak business?
Yeah, absolutely. So just very briefly, my background is in food engineering. I've joined Tetra Pak almost 25 years ago. And I am currently running our portfolio for global processing services and all of our services solutions. Tetra Pak is a global company. We are a food company. We are in the space of making food safe and available everywhere. That's our vision that we all share at Tetra Pak. And we protect what's good. So this is our brand promise. We protect food, people, and planet. We are probably better known as a packaging company because that's our heritage. That's how we started. We were pioneering aseptic packaging for liquid foods around the world. But we also have a fantastic food processing business for liquid food, for cheese, for ice cream, for drying, for new food, and the new proteins, etc. So we are truly an end-to-end partner to our customers. We are doing turnkey plans for our customers, greenfield plans. And we have capabilities quite literally end to end in the food manufacturing space. We are a company with a turnover of just over 12 billion euros, privately owned, again, originally from Sweden, but we're now global in over 160 countries, and we're proud of our global presence, our closeness to our customers, partnerships, and the very good services business that we have.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And, I mentioned that when I think of this sort of service growth evolution, I often think of Tetra Pak. And that's because, since you and I first connected, which was numerous years ago, that's been part of your focus, right? And so I think it's just representative of the company's, understanding that there is a lot of potential, not only from a revenue perspective, which is what this research focused around, but to your point, the best way to go after that, in my opinion, is when you're looking at it through the lens of what is that end-to-end customer journey and what are their needs? How can we help them in new and different ways? That's where that
Hmm.
potential comes from. And I think the company has done a good job of you mentioned the heritage. I think what often happens is that companies that have that heritage in being more of a manufacturing organization, they tend to, stay with that heritage and not necessarily look at how, broadening out to services could bring value to
Hmm.
customers and ultimately the business itself. So kudos to you and the organization. So that being said, let's
Thank you.
dive into some of the research, and that will give a bit more context to what I'm saying. So the research, one of the things that was nice to see is that there was overall a very optimistic view of services growth potential, what service growth can look like going forward, as well as the role that field service differentiation can play
Mhm.
in businesses. Can you talk a bit about, that sentiment? How is that shared at Tetra Pak? What is sort of the, feeling within the organization
Mhm.
around service and its potential into the future?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So I first let me start with just saying thanks to Simon-Kucher and to Future Field Service. I think this work is extremely important. I love benchmarking. I think it makes all of us better in the industry. It enables us to actually provide significantly more value to our customers and learn from each other at the
Hmm.
end of the day. So thank you for that. I have actually some of my notes here from the research and what I've seen there. So what kind of captured my attention is a very optimistic look for services, right? So services leaders, 85% of the leaders that were surveyed had a very optimistic look for services, and even more, 91% indicate future revenue growth
Hmm.
potential for the business, and nearly half actually kind of see that services is becoming a big differentiator. I fully agree with those sentiments. I hold a very optimistic view for services. I mean, services has been a wonderful business for us and a value driver for our customers at Tetra Pak. We have seen very, very good growth of service business and evolution. You mentioned as well. I mean, it's good to remember and cherish the kind of the heritage of the business,
Hmm.
but the business is also evolving because
Hmm.
the markets are evolving, the customers are evolving, so there's ever changing needs, and and the services business is kind of on the front end of that evolution. So I'm very excited about all of the opportunities that are out there. We're going to talk about some of the outcome driven services, which I think there are tremendous opportunities in that area. But I think we should just all keep in mind that I think services, in a large part, is what makes customers come back.
Hmm.
You can only sell equipment once,
Hmm.
okay? And no matter how good that equipment is and how technologically advanced that equipment is, it provides significant value to the customers, but that's not why the customers necessarily come back to you. I think in a large part, the customers come back because of the service experience that they get over the life cycle, of the equipment and that they feel that they're taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
they continue to receive value not only at the point of purchase of the equipment, but also throughout the lifetime of the equipment through various services that we can provide. So services role is becoming ever more important.
Yeah, I agree. And, I mentioned at the beginning that, in my view, compared with, I obviously anecdotally am talking to service leaders week after week,
Mhm.
sometimes day after day, right? So I have some perspective there. But also within, the research itself, it sort of reflected the same thing, which is what leads me to say that, in my view, Tetra Pak should feel quite proud of the maturity of its approach comparatively, right? Can you talk a little bit more about, what that journey has looked like and what you feel has allowed you as a business to
Mhm.
really understand and progress that service value proposition?
Yeah, so let me again look at my some of my notes
Hmm.
from the survey. So if we look at the portfolios of the services businesses out there, um, 76% of surveys indicated that they still primarily offer a la carte
Hmm.
service offerings. Okay. And 10% said that they tiered them into various sort of packages,
Hmm.
various level packages for their customers. And then only 2% indicated that they would go into outcome based. Um, I think services is a trust builder,
Hmm.
is a true relationship builder with the customers. And when I look at the statistics like these, it also reflects of how much trust there is between these companies that were surveyed and perhaps their customers.
Hmm.
We at Tetra Pak have been on this journey for quite a while, actually, and we started with our outcome-driven services probably a good 20 years ago, or at least
Hmm.
15 years ago, and we've progressed significantly since. Half of our sales and our service business is a significant business. It's 2.2 billion euros, just
Hmm.
to put things in perspective. So half of that is delivered through these long-term agreements with various types of commitments. So we have a commitment on as basic as like the maintenance cost over the lifetime of the asset, and it's a maintenance cost per month or maintenance cost per unit versus very advanced plant level guarantees on like cost reduction, efficiency improvement, waste improvement, etc. We're very proud of what we were able to achieve, but we're also very humble because we want to continue to evolve. We want to continue to learn, but it's a very rewarding space where, in fact, yesterday I met with one of our key customers here in the United States, and we had a review for 2025, and we managed to increase their throughput by 9%. So their entire
Hmm.
system that they have in place without any capital investment was able to produce 9% more product. And this is what we want because this is converting idle time into productive time. This is reducing their overall cost per unit. This is reducing their waste, both in terms of time and material. So these are the types of outcomes that we want to drive.
Hmm.
Um, the um, the way to get there, like for the companies that are just starting on this journey, is again when I look at this like 76% a la carte, I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing because to me it's like it means that they've been able to define the offer and the value that they can provide.
Hmm.
Then then the question is perhaps only how to then take that next step and take a little bit more risk with their customers, and instead of just offering a la carte and invoicing for it, uh, you know, go into a little bit more of a partnership and commit to not only to kind of show the value, but also
Hmm.
realize the value. That's very important.
Hmm.
Identifying the value is only the first step. Realizing the value is very important step to actually commercialize the outcome based offerings. And as well, it perhaps is also a reflection of capabilities, because
Hmm.
we in Tetra Pak define capabilities as people, processes, systems, and data. So we have four components that we are tracking for capabilities. And people component, it is the most important, in my opinion, component, at least in the services area, because services is a business of people for the people. It's very much a relationship business. It's very much tied to specific individuals and not just systems.
Hmm.
But as well, systems and processes are of equal importance to make it replicable, to make it reliable, and to continue to realize more value. So very proud of what we've done in this space, but there's definitely more room to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that you feel that way about your business. I think the only 2% being outcomes based is where I think, you know, there's a lot of potential. And I know you were traveling, but we had a workshop a couple weeks back in New York at Simon-Kucher's office, and we had a group of about 15 senior leaders across different industries that came in to sort of talk through this research for the day. And I
Mhm,
think there just remains a lot of ambiguity around the journey to outcomes, and not only
mhm,
how do we define that, but also, there's this perception that if we're doing that journey, we're going all in on
mhm,
outcomes, right? So it's this shift of value proposition from one thing to another thing. And I think,
mhm.
you mentioned your own sort of mix of service offerings. I think one thing that's important is, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right? Not every customer relationship is going to warrant that type of partnership or agreement, but where you can build that relationship and that trust to understand what that looks like, and you have, to your point, the human and technological capabilities to take that on, there is a lot of potential there. So I think if that percent is sitting only at 2%, going back to the positive sentiment, figuring out what are the right opportunities to increase that is important for folks.
Yeah, and Sarah, just to add to that, I would actually argue that, you know, all service businesses are about outcomes.
Hmm.
Okay. It's just a question of how you realize that value, how
Hmm.
you're able to capture that value between you and your customer. And then of course, what is then the way to sort of monetize that, and how that works in a relationship. Because if you benefit and your customers benefit, then of course it's a mutually beneficial relationship. But even if you're selling a la carte services, these services are in fact delivering outcomes to your
Hmm.
customers. So then, taking that next step, yes, of course, it requires, a little bit of courage and a little bit of thinking and a little bit of creativity, and some of the systems around it. But it's not such a big step as the step from going from like cost center to profit center.
Hmm.
That is fundamentally a huge step in the journey for the services companies. So if somebody's still operating as a cost center, to get them to a profit center is fundamentally more difficult than going from the profit center to an outcome driven, value delivering center.
Hmm. I love that point that every service is delivering outcomes. It's more around how are you structuring it. What I want to ask you about there, because this, was a big part of the discussion at the workshop as well. And I think it's a big shift for companies that are still operating in more of a transactional break fix,
Mhm.
responsive type manner. Is this, art form of the value narrative? right? So
Mm,
starting to shift the way that you're thinking about your customer relationships, the way that you're talking with your customers, regardless of what your current, structure is,
mhm.
to kind of bringing more of that lens and more of that narrative into those relationships. What are your
Mm.
thoughts on sort of the value selling and sort of anchoring the services messages around what you just said, which is that all services are delivering outcomes for customers? Like, how can we get better at looking at it that way and, communicating that value in those relationships?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to generalize,
Hmm.
because value selling is not a new concept. It's been around for decades. Everybody's talking about it. Not everybody's doing it necessarily,
Right,
but
right.
everybody's talking about it. I think again, I think the critical question that the services leaders need to ask themselves and their organizations is, how much value do they identify in their value chain, and how much value do they capture in their
Hmm.
value chain? And then once the value is captured, how is that shared, in a fair and transparent way with their customers, right? So
Hmm.
services business is an incredible capability to extract more value from existing value chains. And I mean, I can talk about the food business that we're in, right? So in the food business, it's not an efficient business by
Hmm.
design. Okay, but there's a lot of legacy setups, old equipment. There's a lot of like consumption of resources that overconsumption of resources that can be significantly improved. There's still a lot of time wasted. There's a lot of idle time. In fact, on average, I think the some of the data that I've seen is equipment's utilized somewhere between 30 to 40% of the time,
Hmm.
if you look at like the overall equipment effectiveness in the food industry. And so there's ample opportunities to
Hmm.
improve. And for the services leaders, it's a question of how you take the capabilities that you have and you can build in your organization to actually identify the value and realize that value for your customers. So
Hmm.
if you can answer these two fundamental questions, the rest just kind of falls in place
Hmm.
quite nicely. It just becomes mechanical.
Yeah, very good. So the next thing I want to talk about is not to bring us into more of a pessimistic or negative lens, right? But the reality is, there are a lot of challenges and roadblocks that pop up when organizations are on this quest for service growth, and you're trying to figure out all of
Hmm.
these things, the shift from cost center to profit center, how you kind of
Hmm.
progress your offerings, et cetera. Um, the research sort of broke these challenges out into two areas: structural, which I also think of as strategic, and then execution based, which I also think you could define as operational. I'm just
Hmm.
curious, if any of those stood out to you that you would want to comment on in terms of how you've experienced them, how you've navigated
Hmm.
them, what you found relatable.
Yeah, no, exactly. I picked actually three, which looked very relevant and interesting to me. Is the majority of respondents indicate workforce shortages. So 68% indicate workforce shortages, and high turnovers, and I'm seeing very similar trends. Especially, a lot of our customers are suffering on the operational levels, like finding good operators and retaining good operators is becoming increasingly more difficult. Um, we have been blessed in Tetra Pak. Our turnover in what field services, let's call it like that, is actually fairly low. It's less than 4%.
Hmm.
And uh, we have put a lot of focus on retaining our people, keeping our people happy, finding ways for them to improve their work-life balance, giving them the tools and the processes to operate successfully at our customers. So, for example, we have a program called Red Carpet, which, in a nutshell, um, is around like if you do a great job for your customer, and we're going to help you to do a great job. We're going to give you all the tools and steps and capabilities that you need. Customers are going to roll the red carpet for you the next time you come. And in fact, that's of course, not literally, but figuratively speaking, that's what happens because customers are happy then to see them back. So the worst case scenario is when a company sends a technician to a customer and the technician is not 100% certain of their ability to actually do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps they've taken that training a long time ago, or they're not even trained on the subject, or they're coming into the job, not sure on how to do it. This is the worst case scenario because effectively, it creates unnecessary stress across the system with the individual, with the customer, then with the company, because then it's going to be a lot of disputed work and, it took much longer, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one of the stress elements that we're trying to take out of the system and to make sure that when we actually do the job, we do the job properly and more.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, we are truly attacking travel. Travel is in the services industry. Travel is one of the biggest waste factors. I've always talked about it now for years, and we must eliminate travel as much as possible through more predictive services, more planned services, and kind of more on-site engagement. So we have quite a few of our customer contracts where we have on-site presence full time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people don't travel in and out of our customers. That makes things significantly easier in terms of relationship, in terms of predictability, and of course in terms of work-life balance for the individuals. So there are levers that service leaders can actually activate to remove the stress from the system and help alleviate this kind of workforce shortages issue. So this was one of the things. Then the second one was knowledge management and kind of how to handle knowledge management in general. Thankfully, there's a myriad of various tools and platforms that are now appearing that we're seeing. A lot of it is AI enabled tools that actually help kind of augment the individual with the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that they need, and also enable the knowledge to be shared in a very, very effective way
Mm-hmm.
across the organization globally. Like we are a global organization. If we find an innovative way to solve an issue for the customer, I want to replicate it like immediately. I want the next day everybody else to know
Mm-hmm.
how to do it and do it more effectively. So uh, knowledge management and lack of institutional knowledge management was indicated by 47% of people.
Mm-hmm.
I am with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can do more in this area, but I'm glad to see a lot of these new platforms emerging. And then finally, the third point is this kind of lack of, it was mentioned as lack of real-time visibility,
Mm-hmm.
and that was 38% of respondents. This point I would actually question because I don't think that in most scenarios, in the majority of scenarios, you actually need real-time visibility. Because you need real-time visibility like when you are on a production floor and you are tracking an improvement that perhaps you're driving and you want to make sure that things are going the right way. But But if you are just kind of designing your services, I think there's a lot to be said about just data analysis, kind of
Mm-hmm.
bigger data, benchmarking different data, and that doesn't have to be real time. Real time is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So having something real time is super, super expensive. And having data real time remotely, with very low latency, or it becomes super, super expensive. So there
Mm-hmm.
is a kind of a price value balance there, and I think there's more value in having more data rather than having data real time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I really like the point that you made around the workforce because what I like about your view and Tetra Pak's focus is that as we think about how we expand service and how we grow, where is the opportunity for that growth?
Mhm,
I love this point about how crucial it is to consider the employee experience right alongside that. Like, if you want to be
mhm,
able to expand this opportunity, where are those points to evolve the employee experience in a positive way that is going to
mhm,
allow those more sustainable, satisfied, long-term relationships that your customers are trusting and depending on, right? So I think
mhm,
it's a really important reminder for folks that if the goal is growing revenue and growing, realizing the service potential, one of the first things you should be doing is really reflecting on what is the employee experience. To your point,
mhm,
where are they stressed? Where are they struggling? How do we remove those barriers? How do we give
mhm,
them that better work-life experience or less stress, et cetera? I think
mhm, mhm,
it's a really important connection that, not everyone automatically looks at. Sometimes people want the growth, but they don't necessarily want to do the work of reflecting on, you know, uh, the opportunities to improve the experience of the
mhm.
people that you're really relying on to deliver that growth. So I think that's a really important reminder.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think growing revenue cannot be the kind of the overarching, the principal goal of a services
Hmm.
organization. I think the principal goal should be to deliver value to your customers.
Hmm.
And then if you truly deliver value and you realize that value, growing revenue will be a natural consequence of that. Because if the goal is just to grow revenue, I mean, just raise prices, and you
Right.
can do it to a point. I mean, there's different price elasticities in different industries, but yeah, you can grow through pricing, but that's not the point of services. Services is about
Hmm.
delivering value.
Hmm.
So and the value is delivered through the individuals that you need to retain. That's
Hmm.
that's really the connection that I see.
Yeah, it's an important one. Okay, so what I want to talk about next is, we looked at the role of digital in
Hmm.
this whole thing, and
Hmm.
what the research showed essentially is that digital delivers growth when it is set upon strong commercial foundations and also when it's
Hmm.
approached pragmatically. So looking at like a strong core of foundational capabilities and then looking for these
Hmm.
opportunities to layer in, AI, automation, what have you. For
Hmm.
Tetra Pak, what has the marriage of, digital innovation and commercial best practices looked like?
Yeah, so the research actually has showed very, very high interest in this area.
Hmm.
The investments in automation AI were like at 60 and 70% levels of the respondents. Um, I would argue here as well that like this day and age, services without the digital backing, the digital layer is delivering good value to your customers. Without that is very difficult to impossible.
Hmm.
it may have been possible, 30 years ago,
Hmm.
but this day probably not. So for the companies out there that are like ramping up in this area, I would just encourage them to accelerate because it opens up just so many opportunities, so many things can be done on the basis
Hmm.
of kind of data-driven outcomes. We have been very successful in that area since 1990s, and I still don't know who took the strategic decision in Tetra Pak, but that was a very, very good decision to start collecting, a lot of data from the production from our equipment. So we've kind of invested heavily in that infrastructure, but that gave us a very significant opportunity to not only for the engineering, because that it was engineering driven, right? So
Hmm.
it was the designers looking for like how is the equipment operating out there? How can we make it better? That was the original intent. But later, services kind of came in, and okay, if we take this data and we start benchmarking, between similar customer archetypes on similar equipment models versus also like external, how our competitors are doing. Um, so when we benchmark, then we very clearly see opportunities for improvement.
Hmm.
And we've had a digital system called Plant Master. It's a very nice system that again was designed back in the 1990s. We've significantly upgraded that system over the years, but it was time to significantly modernize it, put new architecture because it's it shouldn't only be digital for digital.
Hmm.
We've designed our new platform, which we launched in November of last year. We launched it at Gulf Food Show in Dubai. The system is called Factory OS.
Hmm.
So Tetra Pak Factory OS, by design, we wanted it to address three specific areas as well as just pure digital and productivity. And those areas were high pressure on costs at our customers. Okay,
Hmm.
so we want the system that enables radical changes in cost structures and how
Hmm.
we can eliminate waste and reduce operational costs. So that's one. Second, deliver on the sustainability goals. So that's very related to the waste
Hmm.
as well. So as we reduce the water, as we reduce the raw material consumption and the product waste, that of course is has a significant impact on sustainability. And then shortage of skilled workers as well. So as we just talked about, the platforms to help augment the knowledge, right? So the knowledge management platforms and Factory OS can do that. So in
Hmm.
Factory OS, we augment workers with instructions, AI enablement. So in when it's needed, people can take better decisions, faster decisions with the help of Factory OS. So it's a new architecture that we have. It's open, it's modular, so we can ingest any data. It's not Tetra Pak specific. It
Hmm.
can work with basically any OEM production equipment, and it can sort of ingest the data, orchestrate it, demonstrate it, and then help people to take the right decisions on the basis of it.
Hmm.
So very excited about the new opportunities that we have. We are already starting now the rollout of the new platform and a lot of upgrade opportunities for the brownfields, and of
Hmm.
course a lot of excellent opportunities for services
Hmm.
with the greenfield applications as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think, your point is a good one that for the organizations that are looking at, where are the opportunities to provide more value to grow in services, we're far beyond the point where that's possible to do just based on working harder,
Hmm.
more manpower, you really it's built upon, these capabilities. It's the people. are always going to be what makes service special and what builds the relationships and the trust. But like you
Yeah.
said, it's impossible really to deliver these types of outcomes without that digital layer. So understanding where you are versus where you need to be, and of course, looking at what's next is really, really important. Um,
But perhaps I also want to make a comment here. Of course, it's a must-have,
mhm,
okay? But many of our customers are quite advanced in this area as well, right?
mhm,
And I know that other OEMs are also placing a lot of investments there. So for the other service leaders that are growing their business and growing outcomes out there and delivering more value, uh, you know, you, there's not a requirement to like always come with your own system. Okay, so like
mhm,
if you don't come with your own digital system, then you can't deliver the outcome. No, I mean if the data is available to you and you can draw conclusions out of this data, that's what services basically needs. Yeah, but having a
mhm.
system, of course, helps a lot in accelerating that work and deliver that value faster.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so going back to our first point about the overall positivity around services growth, when
Mhm.
you look ahead, so to where you're going next, what are you most excited about? Where do you see the most potential for Tetra Pak and how you serve your customers?
Yeah, without disclosing too much of our secret sauces, generally speaking, I think the industry has a significant potential in these knowledge gaps.
Hmm.
So, whatever we as a services industry can do in filling in the knowledge gaps at our customers' sites for them to be able to work more effectively and to have less cost, be more sustainable, have a repeatable production output that is improving. Um, that's a very good opportunity area for growth at this
Hmm.
moment is to go and to figure out ways, new models, new learning modalities, perhaps, the way that we deliver services in the area of having the right skills and
Hmm.
augmenting the skills of our customers to enable them to be more successful. So that's one kind of big area, and the second big area is generally speaking like as a service. So deeper partnerships, um, you know, adding the ability to alleviate some of the concerns, for example, for like capital investments. So how can we help our customers to go from heavy capex oriented models to perhaps more opex oriented models and find enough savings in opex to actually for them to be able to save on their capital investments.
Hmm.
So, and then of course, delivering just various types of other outcomes. So, for example, quality outcome, quality as a service. Making sure that all of the capabilities, the people, the processes, the systems, and data, everything is in place and working towards the outcome, such as, for example, quality. Okay, and
Hmm.
guaranteeing that to the customer. So these are just some of the very high level areas that I'm seeing as significant with significant potential, at least in the food and beverage space at
Hmm.
this moment.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, you've been with the business 20 years, and you remain excited about where you're headed next, which I think is a really great thing and a wonderful sign. Um, in closing, Sasha, if you were asked to give advice to a company that's
Mhm.
in that sort of 2% outcomes category that really is focused on how to grow that,
Mhm.
what lesson learned or words of wisdom would you share?
Well, first I would congratulate them because to me, 2% is like infinitely better than 0%,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it just means that somewhere in their business, somewhere in their company, they had figured out a way to deliver and to visualize, identify, visualize, capture the value for their customers, and make it a successful business for themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I would congratulate them for that. Uh, a lot can be learned from that. So I would be much more optimistic for the company that has like 2% outcomes, because from 2% you can scale to 20%, you can scale to 40%, etc. Where with the company with 0%, maybe there's some fundamental
Yeah.
issues that just needs to be solved. But for a company that does 2%, I think it's fantastic. I think that services will be the kind of the true differentiator for a lot of businesses going forward. And services is what makes, as I said in the beginning, is what makes customers come back, is the relationship builder, is the trust bridge between us and our customers, or that company and their customers, and the more outcomes we can deliver, the more risk we can take together,
Mm-hmm.
the better off everybody is. There's nothing wrong in taking risk if you understand what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like playing in a casino. I mean, you identified the value, you know how
Mm-hmm.
to capture that value, take some risk, and it's a win-win proposition at the end of the day.
Yeah. I love that point because, like you said, if you're already at 2%, I think one of the most important things to get a company from 0 to 2 is the mindset shift. Like
Mm.
it really clicking in for what it can mean and what that opportunity looks like, right? And I think a lot of the biggest hurdle, kind of like you said, is going from cost center to profit center. It's that really early shift in mindset, shift in, what is services identity to the business? What
Mm.
does it represent for where we're headed? So I think that's great. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
and sharing your insight and your knowledge. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks, Sasha. You can find more by visiting the home of Unscripted at futureoffieldservice.com. The podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more at ifs.com. And as always, thank you for listening.